In April 2017, Central Islip on Long Island became the center of one of the most notorious MS-13 murder investigations in New York history. What began as a casual invitation to hang out at a park ended in a brutal gang-related attack that shocked the entire country and intensified national attention on MS-13 activity across Long Island. Authorities said the victims were lured to a wooded area near the Central Islip Recreation Center by teenagers connected to the gang. The attack happened on April 11, 2017. The victims were 16-year-old Justin Lavicura, 20-year-old Michael Lopez Banagas, 18-year-old Jorge Tigre, 18-year-old Jefferson Villalobos. A fifth teenager, Elmer Ruiz, managed to escape and later became one of the key witnesses in the investigation. According to prosecutors, 2 teenage girls played a major role in bringing the victims to the park. One of them was 17-year-old Leonais Escobar, later referred to in court documents by the nickname La Diablita, meaning the Little Devil. Investigators said the victims believed they were simply going to meet up, smoke marijuana, and spend time together. Instead, authorities alleged they were being set up. At the time, MS-13 had already established a violent presence in parts of Long Island, particularly in communities like Brentwood and Central Islip. Law enforcement agencies had been investigating a growing number of gang-related attacks connected to disputes, social media conflicts, and suspected rival affiliations. According to investigators, some of the victims had posted photos online displaying hand signs associated with MS-13. Prosecutors said gang members interpreted those posts as disrespectful and also suspected some of the victims of associating with rival gangs, including 18th Street. The rivalry between MS-13 and 18th Street had already existed for decades, dating back to Los Angeles during the 1990s before spreading into other parts of the United States. Authorities believe that tension ultimately contributed to the deadly events that unfolded in Central Islip. On the night of the attack, the victims traveled to this wooded area expecting a normal meetup. Instead, prosecutors said they were surrounded by multiple MS-13 members waiting in the trees and nearby brush. Court testimony later revealed that many of the attackers attempted to hide their identities by covering their faces. According to investigators, the victims were ordered onto their knees moments before the attack began. Elmer Ruiz ran from the scene and escaped over a fence. The other 4 victims were unable to get away. The following day, their bodies were discovered inside the wooded area, sending shockwaves through Long Island communities already struggling with rising gang violence. Residents described fear spreading throughout neighborhoods as news coverage intensified. Parents became increasingly concerned about gang recruitment involving teenagers, especially through schools and social media. Local and federal investigators launched a massive operation involving homicide detectives, gang units, and federal agencies. Authorities quickly began interviewing witnesses, analyzing phone records, reviewing social media activity, and tracking connections between suspected gang members. Elmer Ruiz eventually provided investigators with details about what happened that night and identified individuals connected to the attack. As the investigation expanded, multiple arrests followed. Several suspects tied to MS-13 were charged with murder and conspiracy offenses. Some were teenagers at the time of the killings. Others were undocumented immigrants from El Salvador, according to reports released during court proceedings. Over the next several years, prosecutors secured convictions against multiple gang members involved in the attack. Many received lengthy prison sentences, including life terms. During the trials, prosecutors introduced phone recordings, witness testimony, and statements from former gang associates. One of the most discussed figures in the case was Leonais Escobar. According to court testimony, investigators alleged Escobar embraced gang culture and actively participated in helping organize the meeting that led the victims into the wooded area. Her former boyfriend later testified against her in court. Prosecutors also referenced recorded phone calls in which Escobar allegedly discussed the killings after they occurred. The case received national media attention and became one of the highest-profile MS-13 prosecutions in New York during that period. Federal officials frequently pointed to the murders as an example of the gang's growing violence and recruitment of young members. But the Central Islip murders were not the only devastating MS-13-related tragedy connected to Long Island. Months earlier, another case had already horrified the community. On September 13, 2016, best friends Nisa Mickens and Kayla Cuevas disappeared while walking through Brentwood, New York. Nisa was 15 years old. Kayla was 16. The two girls were extremely close friends and attended Brentwood High School together. Friends and family described them as inseparable. Both enjoyed basketball, spending time together, and typical teenage activities. But according to investigators, tensions had been building between Kayla and individuals connected to MS-13. Authorities later stated that social media arguments and online disputes may have played a role in what happened next. That evening, the girls were attacked and killed in a wooded residential area. Their deaths devastated Brentwood residents and intensified pressure on law enforcement agencies already dealing with rising gang activity. As investigators worked the case, MS-13 once again became the focus of national headlines. The murders of Nisa Mickens and Kayla Cuevas triggered widespread fear throughout Long Island communities. Parents worried about safety near schools and parks. Community meetings became emotional as residents demanded action from officials. Law enforcement agencies responded with expanded gang investigations, arrests, and coordinated federal operations targeting MS-13 leadership and associates. The case became heavily debated due to witness accounts, video footage, and arguments surrounding intent and responsibility. At one point, Drago was convicted and sentenced to prison. However, legal appeals later resulted in the conviction being overturned due to issues raised during the trial process. The legal outcome frustrated many supporters of the Rodriguez family, who continued pushing for accountability. Today, Kayla Cuevas and Evelyn Rodriguez are buried side by side. Their matching dates of death, exactly 2 years apart, remain one of the most haunting details connected to the story. The deaths of the 4 young men in Central Islip, the murders of Nisa Mickens and Kayla Cuevas, and the later death of Evelyn Rodriguez all became part of a larger conversation surrounding gang violence, youth recruitment, social media conflicts, and community safety on Long Island. The cases also highlighted how quickly teenagers can become caught in cycles of violence tied to gangs and online disputes. For many families, the emotional impact never ended. Parents lost children. Friends lost classmates. Entire neighborhoods were left dealing with fear, grief, and unanswered questions. Even years later, the stories continue to be remembered across Long Island as some of the most tragic crimes connected to MS-13 activity in the region. The wooded areas where some of these attacks occurred still stand today as reminders of how devastating gang violence can become when young lives are pulled into it. The victims in these cases are still remembered through memorials, vigils, and tributes held by family members and local communities. For many residents, the names Justin Lavicura, Michael Lopez Banegas, Jorge Tigre, Jefferson Villalobos, Nisa Mickens, Kayla Cuevas, and Evelyn Rodriguez remain permanently tied to one of the darkest chapters in Long Island history. Their stories continue to serve as reminders of the lasting consequences of violence, retaliation, and gang influence on vulnerable communities. Like if you want more true crime shorts, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next case.